¿Qué pasa, YouTube? 6 Hacks here for you guys today. Week 5 of the CCL D League. Up a day late because I couldn't battle last week, so I had a battle yesterday late on Monday. So it's going up on Tuesday, but next week we should be back on schedule with these going up every Monday. This week we are facing KMJ next, the coach of the Brooklyn Magnets. Now, I will be making a playlist of all my CCL D League matches if you guys would like to check out the previous week matches that we have had. Now, we are currently 4-0 in the CCL D League, so definitely looking to make it 5-0. We have a pretty decent matchup this week. We don't have anything too scary to worry about, as you can see from the matchup on the bottom right hand corner. If you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like button down below. One like can definitely go a long way, and make sure to answer the question of the day because I'm interested to find out what your guys' answers are to that. So let's take a look at what I am bringing this week. We have Juliet, the Jolteon, Moneybags, the Pelipper, Meltzer, the Mammoth Swine, Jasmine, the Reuniclus, Munchies, the Snorlax, and Corbin, the Cobalion. Now this is more or less what I'm expecting my opponent to bring. DD Haxorus, this thing is actually very problematic if I'm not able to deal damage to it and put it in range of where Meltzer's Ice Shard will be able to knock it out. Now, Mamoswine is actually a huge threat in this game because my opponent doesn't really have anything to safely switch in to Mamoswine, so I decided to go with Adamant because I don't really need the Jolly Nature like everything that I otherwise would outspeed with Jolly. I can outspeed with Adamant and just have the extra power from Adamant. Ice Shard does about 60% to like 70% to Haxorus, so as long as I'm able to kind of force him in and out with Rocks Up or get off some prior damage, then Haxorus really shouldn't be that big of an issue. Infernape is a little problematic depending on if it'll be Swords Dance or Nasty Plot or Mixed, but I do have Chople Berry Snorlax, which with the HP and defense EVs, we can 100% take a close combat even if he does get a crit. I think close combat only does about 48 to 52% with Chople Berry, and then after the -1, Earthquake can straight nuke him with Adamant Nature and 136 attack EVs. If he turns out to be special, which we can obviously take a Focus Blast with Chople Berry, then Earthquake after Rocks 100% knocks him out. But if he is close combat, then he's getting knocked out either way. Gunk Shot is mainly for his Clefable because it's obviously a Clefable. We will be able to hit it for super effective damage. Return over Body Slam because I want to Toxic Milotic, which Milotic is another kind of annoying Pokemon that we may have to deal with in this matchup. Even though, yes, I do have Juliet here, he does have an Amoonguss to pair up with Milotic, so that is going to be a bit of an issue. I really don't see him wanting to bring Silvally because I don't think it does anything good in our matchup. I don't expect Azelf because I don't think it also does anything good. Like, even if he brings Azelf, I'm honestly not worried about it because we do have Jolteon, although the main reason why I have Modest over Timid is because I don't expect Azelf. And even if he does bring in Azelf, we have Scarf Moneybags here. I know it's a little bit odd to have a Scarf Pelipper with no Rainmon, even though I do have a Kabutops and a Kingdra. But Scarf Pelipper actually does really good in this matchup. Like, if you look at his team, everything dies to the combination of Hurricane or Hydro Pump in the rain after Rocks damage and a bit of extra prior damage. Sleep Talk, of course, is for Amoonguss if it does decide to want to go for the Spore. I have a Sleep Fodder in my Pelipper here. We have Jasmine the Reuniclus, which I absolutely love Reuniclus right now so far in the CCL D League. Like, not many people have Dark types, so it's so easy just to run Double Dance Reuniclus and just set up and sweep. The speed EVs on Reuniclus and on Snorlax are to outspeed Amoonguss if he's running any bit of speed EVs. The defense EVs aren't really too crucial for anything, but I did want to put a bit of Spadef EVs to be able to take special hits a little bit better if I'm outside of the rain and the Infernape turns out to be special. Salazzle also could maybe be a bit of a nuisance, but as long as I have Munchies here or my Reuniclus, it shouldn't be that problematic unless it gets up a Nasty Plot, or actually if it turns out to be sub Nasty Plot, that could be a little bit annoying, but I should still be able to play around that. Corbin the Cobalion here is running enough speed EVs to be able to outspeed Jolly Max Speed Haxorus before it Dragon Dances, And unless it Dragon Dances, I don't think that it can Oko Kabalion in any one hit. So from there, I can just Iron Head him and put him in range of where Meltzer's Meltzer's Ice Shard will be able to knock out the Haxorus. Toxic again is just for the Milotic, because that is going to be a bit of a nuisance if he does decide to bring it. Also, if he doesn't have Heal Bell Clefable, then Milotic shouldn't be an issue. Although if Milotic does have Haze, then my Reuniclus can't set up on it, but I should be able to play around that accordingly. If it is Rest Talk, he's probably going to be Rest Talk Scald with Dragon Tail. So that's going to be a little bit more manageable to deal with, because if my Reuniclus is my last Pokemon, then at that point I can just set up and win. If he's Haze, then there's a chance that he doesn't have the rest, so I can Toxic him and then eventually wear him down and beat him down with offensive pressure and Jolteon in general. So I really think that's everything to cover about the team. This is a bit of a faster team analysis thing, but with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the actual battle. Alright guys, so we got the matchup here, and as you can see, he did not bring the Crobat or the Clefable. Actually, I did not talk about Crobat. Crobat is only a problem if he's offensive, but then again, that's why I have so many defensive Vs and HP Vs on my Kabalion to be able to be a pivot into the Crobat. So if he did bring the Crobat, Volt Turn could have been annoying, but I should have been able to kind of play around that. Luckily though, I don't have to worry about Volt Turn unless he does have U-Turn on his Infernape, which I don't exactly have a safe switch in outside of Rain. So depending on what kind of set it is will determine on how I can deal with it. Magneton, I was honestly, I thought about him maybe bringing Magneton, but I don't know what Magneton can really do in this matchup. Like, unless he's modest choice specs, then he is probably not going to be doing too much in this game. He also doesn't have any hazard removal, which means as soon as I get on my rocks with Kabalion, then we will be in a good scenario. Again, Haxorus shouldn't be a problem so long as I can get off one huge hit on him before he Dragon Dances, and then that way he's in 100% range of my Mamoswine. Basically, any of my other 5 Mons can do one hit to Haxorus to put it in range of where Mamoswine's Ice Shard will be able to finish him off. Milotic, I need to figure out if it is a bulky Rest Talk set or a Recover set. So if it is Recover, then that should be a little bit more easy for me to manage with, because Sleep Talk does gain the defensive boost, and that means that Mamoswine probably won't be able to 2 KO him after rocks. Amoonguss shouldn't be an issue because I do have Reuniclus and I have Sleep Talk on my Pelipper to be able to absorb a Spore, so that's pretty good. Looking at leads, I really thought that he would lead off with the Azelf. So thinking that, I'm going to lead off with my Snorlax, but he ends up leading off with the Infernape. Now the thought that he could be Focus Sashed really ran through my mind over and over again, but the more I played out the scenario in my head, I really thought that it was going to be a lot better for me to just stay in here, go for the Earthquake, and bring him down to a Sash, and then from there, I could have switched into my Pelipper on a Flare Blitz, and then even though he may be in Blaze range, I will have the Rain Up, and that will just mean I'll be taking less damage from the Flare Blitz, although I guess he could have maybe tried to predict and gone for the Thunder Punch if he had it. Either way though, staying in turn 1 against his Infernape is definitely my better play, as he's going to go for the close combat. Of course, I will be able to live that with the Chople Berry, and thankfully, he turns out to be Life Orb, which means I will be able to get rid of Infernape turn 1, and Snorlax already just asserting his dominance and proving to be an absolute monster, as he's going to take this chance to bring in the Haxorus. Now, again, there is no reason for me to not just go for a straight offensive move on this Haxorus. If he goes for the superpower, he's going to knock me out and allow me to get a free switch into something like my Reuniclus, which can just set up, or allow me to get a free switch into my Kabalion, which otherwise will be able to just safely get up rocks. And there is a possibility that he may go straight for the Dragon Dance, expecting me to want to switch out. So that's why I'm still going to stay in here and go straight for the return, as he does end up going for the Dragon Dance. Now, like I said in the team preview, all I needed to do for this Haxorus to not be a problem was get off one huge hit on it and put it in range of where my Mamoswine could take it out with the Ice Shard. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be able to bring in Mamoswine here, and even though the switch out was a little obvious, going for the Ice Shard by far was still my best play to do, because there was no reason for me to let him get off damage on my Mamoswine if I didn't need him to do that, because I may need Mamoswine to take a hit later from the Azelf, or even this Milotic, or even the Amoonguss. So I'm going to go for the safe Ice Shard, as he does end up bringing in the Milotic, which honestly is not a problem. I will be able to take this opportunity to switch into my Jolteon, expecting him to just go for the Scald. I guess in hindsight I could have switched into my Reuniclus, but I still don't know if he does have the Dragon Tail or the Haze, but because he has Toxic, that automatically tells me that he does not have the rest. So he most likely is a Recover set with Scald, Toxic, and either Dragon Tail or Haze. So I need to find out which move he has, whether it be Dragon Tail or Haze, to determine on how I can play around this Milotic. So he does end up going for the Toxic, as I will be able to pretty much just go for the Volt Switch here. Because he didn't have a ground type on his team, I knew that Jolteon would be a huge help in this game. As I Volt Switch out from this Amoonguss, I Volt Switch into my Pelipper, and I really wish I brought Specs Pelipper, because if you look at his team, again, like, Pelipper does so good in this matchup. If he has no Scarf Pokemon, Pelipper outspeeds his entire team that he's brought. So if I was Specs here, I could have just gone straight for the Hurricane and even got off a huge hit on the Magneton if he wanted to switch it in. I was very close to going for the Hydro Pump here, expecting him to switch into the Magneton, but the more I thought about it, the more Hurricane seemed like the better play, because all I really need to do is kind of wear down the Magneton, and then from there I will be able to beat it 1v1 eventually. So I'm going to stay in here and I'm going to go straight for the Hurricane. I'm not sure why he did stay in. If anything, he could have just switched into his Milotic, which I still would have been able to get off a decent bit of damage on. As he goes for the Toxic, I'm not sure why he didn't go for the Spore. Maybe he thought I would not go for Hurricane and just be a bulky variant, and that way he could wear me down over time. But the fact that he actually went for Toxic kind of helps me out, because now I have a pseudo switch in to a possible Spore that he may want to go for later in this match. So I did get the confusion here, but as you saw, it doesn't matter, and I'm honestly in a scenario of where I can just go safely for another Hurricane if I really wanted to. But I am going to pull the double switch into my Cobalion, expecting him to actually bring in his Magneton. This way I could go ahead and get up my rocks, but he actually switches into the Milotic, which, yes, I could go for the Toxic, but then he can just go for Scald in the rain and potentially burn me, and I don't want Cobalion to take that much damage if I may need it later in the match to take a hit from Magneton, Azelf, or even the Haxorus. So what I'm going to do here is just go straight for the Volt Switch. I have a pretty perfect switch into this in the form of my Reuniclus, because I do indeed have the Magic Guard, but he ends up going for the Ice Beam. I don't really know why he Ice Beamed. I want to say that he predicted me to bring in Pelipper. That's really the only logical thing I can think of. And so far he has Ice Beam, Toxic, most likely Recover, and then his final move is probably going to be either Scald or a phasing move or the Haze. So I'm just going to stay in here, and my best move to do right now is just definitely go for the Psychic. There's no reason I should go straight for a Calm Mind, because I still don't know if he has the Haze or the Dragon Tail, as I'm able to get off a pretty solid chunk of damage on the incoming Magneton. The fact that that Psychic did 37% or 36.9% has me thinking that this most likely is either a Choice Specs or Choice Scarf Magneton, because obviously Psychic would have done less damage if the Magneton had the Eviolite. So I'm just going to stay in here and I'm going to go for the Recover, expecting him to want to go for the Volt Switch or the Flash Cannon, predicting me to switch out. And seeing that he won't be able to 2-hit KO me here, I'm going to take this chance to go for the Calm Mind, as he's going to be forced into his Milotic. And now I will be able to see if he has the Dragon Tail or the Haze, as he actually ends up going for the Toxic on the off chance that I did have Regenerator, which I did bring in my week 1 match. So that's kind of logical for him to go for Toxic there. Unfortunately though, it turns out that he has Haze, which is probably the more annoying of the two moves that he could have had. Like, again, if he had Dragon Tail, I mentioned this in the team building process. If he had Dragon Tail, then obviously last Mon Reuniclus pretty much just sweeps his entire team, and then I could have maybe played towards having Reuniclus as my last Mon, or I could have saved it until I had it to be my last Mon. But I don't have to do that now because he does have the Haze, which means I have more use for my Reuniclus, especially because this is pretty much the only switch I have for this Milotic. So as soon as I'm able to Toxic him with my Cobalion, then Reuniclus will 100% beat Milotic 1v1 because every turn he stays in, Toxic is just going to keep racking up more and more and more, and from there I can just try to set up in his face or beat him down and win with Reuniclus later in the match. So if I really wanted to, I could have stayed in here and gone for the Calm Mind and forced him to Haze, and then that way I could have got a free switch out, but him going for the Recover was very, very obvious, so I get a free switch into my Jolteon, and I will be able to safely go for the modest Volt Switch again. And as you can see, even though I am modest, it doesn't really matter that he has the Azelf, because I do have ways to deal with Azelf. So I Volt Switch into my Pelipper here, and honestly, much like earlier, I can just go straight for the Hurricane, but I'm not going to do that here. I'm not going to do that here because I am fearing his Magneton being Scarfed, and Scarf Magneton outspeeds Scarfed Pelipper. So U-turning here was definitely my better move to go for because I can U-turn out on whatever he switches in, and there was no way he was staying in with Amoonguss there. Like at that point, Amoonguss was in range of where Hurricane could have knocked him out. So the switch out was very, very obvious. Although, I guess I could have Hurricaned, but like I said, I risk him being Timid Scarf Magneton and then outspeeding me. So I can U-turn into my Cobalion here, and finally, I'm going to be able to get out my Stealth Rocks, because even if he does have the Thunderbolt, there's no way he's going to knock me out in any one hit, and at this point, getting up Rocks is going to be very, very crucial, because every time he's going to be switching in and out, I will be able to just rack up the Rocks damage. As I Volt Switch on the Milotic, again, I do have the Reuniclus here, so I'm going to switch into my Reuniclus as he goes for the Ice Beam, which is his only offensive move at this point, because he's got Ice Beam, Toxic, Recover, and Haze. So I will be able to Psychic the incoming Azelf, and the fact that I'm able to get off 2 Psychics on this Azelf is actually really, really huge, because I put him in range of where Ice Shard from my Mamoswine will 100% knock him out after another Stealth Rock switching. So as he goes for another Flamethrower here, I'm going to decide to go for the Recover. I'm not sure why he has Flamethrower over Fire Blast. Like if he had Fire Blast, then that would have been a little bit scary. But I'm going to take this opportunity to switch into my Pelipper, thinking that he is locked into the Flamethrower. He is going to switch into his Amoonguss. And now comes the mind games of, am I going to go for the U-turn or am I going to go for the Hurricane here? Now, because I do have Rocks up, Hurricane is definitely my better move to go for, because with the damage of Hurricane and Rocks, I could potentially 2-KO whatever he decides to switch in to my Pelipper. And even if he brings in the Magneton, then I don't really have to worry about it because I still have my Cobalion to switch into it. I have my Mamoswine and my Jolteon that could prevent him from going for the Thunderbolt or the Volt Switch. So that's another factor as to why I am going to go straight for the Hurricane here, as he mispredicts, thinking I most likely was going to go for the U-turn, and I'm able to get rid of the Amoonguss, which is really, really good. That is one bulky mon out of the way. As he brings in the Magneton, again, this could potentially be Timid Scarfed, so I am going to be forced to switch out here. And I didn't feel comfortable bringing in my Jolteon or my Mamoswine, because as you can see there, he does end up going for the Flash Cannon, and Corbin is definitely my best middle ground switching, and now I will be able to go for the Volt Switch because he is fearing me potentially having the close combat, which I don't have. So I Volt Switch into my Jolteon, and I can just Volt Switch again and get off a huge hit on this Milotic, but I get a crit. Now, this crit did 100% matter. Even if he didn't have any Spadef EVs, I ran the calc, and I am modest Expert Belt Jolteon. But the max damage that Volt Switch would have done was 64%. Honestly, Volt Switching was a very bad play on my part. I didn't fully think out my turn, because going for the Thunderbolt at this point in the match, with him not having a Amoonguss anymore, was definitely the better play for me to do. I would have knocked out the Haxorus, I would have knocked out the Azelf, and I would have potentially knocked out the Magneton or got off a huge hit to the point where I could have just Volt Switched the following turn. So again, thunderbolting should have definitely been the play that I went for here. So the fact that I crit him kind of made up for that misplay, and it just sped up the process of this battle, because I would have just volt switched into my Reuniclus, and then at that point he could have just recovered, and then I would have probably gone for Psychics, and then eventually put him in a position of where I could have got a free switch back into my Jolteon to go for the Thunderbolt, and then that crit just kind of saved us like 5 turns. So he is going to be able to get switch initiative here as I bring my Pelipper, and I was not paying attention to my rain turns, and I lose the rain here. So I guess what I could have done was volt switched into my Cobalion or even my Mamoswine, honestly, because I think at this point Mamoswine pretty much gets a KO on anything that he has. So he's going to bring in the Magneton, which again, if he is Timid Scarfed, he will be able to just safely outspeed me here. So looking at my team and looking at the rest of his team, even though Pelipper can still put in a lot of work, I think I would much rather have my Cobalion to be able to chew one hit from this Magneton or the Azelf or the Haxorus. So I'm just going to leave in my Pelipper here as Death Fodder, as it turns out I'm actually faster than him, which I wasn't expecting. Otherwise, I would have gone for the Hydro Pump to get off more damage, but I guess this isn't too bad because I still will be able to keep my Pelipper, but I do U-turn into my Corbin here as he's going to go for the Thunderbolt, and then it turns out that he's going to be able to outspeed my Cobalion, so I'm thinking that he was modest Scarf, or he was only running enough speed to where Scarf Magneton could outspeed my Cobalion. But since he is locked into Thunderbolt, and I know he is locked into Thunderbolt, I get a free switch into Mamoswine, and I EQ kill the Magneton, EQ kill the Haxorus, and then just Ice Shard kill the Azelf if he does switch in to my Earthquake, which he does do here. And like I mentioned earlier, after Rocks, he is in 100% range of where Ice Shard is going to knock him out. And at this point, Mamoswine can pretty much win me the battle. So I'm going to switch into my Jasmine here, basically as Death Fodder, because I really don't need her anymore. I can just sack her off and get a free switch back into my Jolteon or my Pelipper, even because he was locked into Flash Cannon, but I am able to live 2 Flash Cannons, knock him out with the Psychic as he brings in the Haxorus. Doesn't matter if he does decide to go for the Dragon Dance or not, I will knock him out with the Psychic, and if he does Outrage, I have everything else on my team to outspeed this Haxorus and knock it out, and that is going to be the 3-0 victory in the Durham Druddigons' favor. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this week's CCL D League match, and if you did, make sure to hit the like button down below, guys, and to answer the question of the day. With that being said, I will probably be streaming today, Tuesday, when this goes up. So if you guys want to come out to the stream, then feel free to do so. I would really love to have you guys out there. And with that being said, I will see you all tomorrow. So later, everybody.
Cause my brain and heart are both tied in a knot, and this hinders me from crying a lot. This causing me to show no emotion. But when I said I cared, I wasn't joking. But I guess it's too late for me to become broken. For now, I'm living with no more pain, tears, or hoping. I'm just coasting. Yeah, I said I'm coasting. No more pain, tears, and hoping. For real.